Let's bring in criminal defense attorney and former public defender Mike Jaafar. He is in Dearborn, Michigan. Good morning to you, Michael. The witness credibility issue on this one might be a little different than the other friends and family members that we've seen come on the stand, only because this was a new story, and it was a whopper that Lori threatened to chop her up and put her in trash bags.
Yeah, I don't know how the prosecution was even able to get this testimony in, because this is so prejudicial, and it has nothing to do with the events that construct the core of this case or what she's accused of. This is a conversation she had with a person. Obviously, a normal person would never tell their friend, "I'm going to cut you up and put you in trash bags," of course. But clearly, Mrs. Daybell is not a normal person, but it doesn't matter because she's not on trial for any conversation she had with this woman. So I'm shocked that the defense was not able to successfully object to this testimony being admitted. This, I'm not defending Ms. Daybell, but this clearly has nothing to do with the case or what she's accused of. I'm a little bit baffled as to why the court is even hearing this testimony. It has nothing to do with the events.
Yeah, it does seem overly prejudicial, and the defense, you could tell, they have been fairly mute in their cross-examinations until yesterday. Boom, they jumped out of their seat and crossed with vigor here, accusing her of lying. So, as they should have. Let's do this. Let's switch gears now. We're going to be getting updates throughout the day. Again, they're just starting to get underway here in Idaho. All right. The defense, a passionate argument with the judge here in this pretrial hearing. Let's bring back in former public defender and criminal defense attorney Mike Jaafar in Dearborn, Michigan. Two very different stories being told, which we see from time to time, a lot of times in cases. But boy, this one is, you've got the prosecution saying this drunk lady hit her boyfriend and left him for dead. And then you have the defense saying he was beaten up by his fellow cops and attacked by the cop's dog and thrown out in the snow, left for dead, to blame the girlfriend. What's your overall take here, and which side do you lean towards more, knowing what we know?
That defense attorney convinced me a little bit that there might be some truth to it. When I heard the prosecutor explaining his oratory, having his oratory with the judge, I thought to myself, yeah, this seems a little bit ridiculous. But when that defense attorney came up, I mean, she has some pretty heavy hitters. He convinced me that this might be the case. This is the typical whodunit. This is what people watch in movies when they grow up and fiction books about the courtroom. This is like, these two sides have polar opposite explanations of what happened. He's now saying, well, my client was beaten by her boyfriend in self-defense. She moved out, she backed out of the driveway and she left, and she was shocked. She didn't know she killed him, so she left. It wasn't that. He said she didn't even do it. She's being framed. Anytime you hear the word framed, you are in for a very dramatic case. Unfortunately, a man died, and we are going to be watching this trial for many, many months. We're just at the beginning. I tend to agree with the defense attorney. When he showed the pictures of the lacerations and what his arm looked like, yeah, that's not a cocktail glass. That's definitely a dog attack, and that swayed me dramatically.
Yeah, it's a fascinating case, and to your point, we'll definitely be watching it for some time to come. Coming up, we're going to listen to more of this pretrial hearing. The prosecution explains away the Apple Health data that was found on O'Keefe's phone on that night. Take a listen, or stay with us. We'll watch it together after this. All right, that's the conclusion of that very compelling pretrial hearing. Let's bring back Mike Jaafar, and he's in Dearborn, Michigan. Michael, at this point, both sides are really digging their heels in, even though we have two separate stories. This thing looks like it's going to trial. You agree?
This thing has to go to trial because both sides have committed themselves to completely opposite sets of facts, right? So here's the thing. What people see when they see hearings like this, they don't see the dozens and dozens and dozens of hours of preparation on both sides. Those guys you see on TV, the attorneys on both sides, those are really, really, really serious players, right? And these people have spent probably over 300 hours preparing for this hearing, and they came to a clash. I mean, the prosecutor and the defense attorneys truly, I'm very interested to follow this case, because they are clashing in the hardest way that you could possibly clash in a courtroom. Again, when the word frame gets thrown out in a courtroom, this is straight out of a movie. If you wrote these facts and you put a movie with these facts, it would not be a believable movie. So this thing is definitely going to trial. This thing is not going to settle. Can you imagine the defense taking the position they took, and then 6 months later we find out that their client is copping to a plea of, you know, involuntary manslaughter? I mean, it would be insane. This thing is going to trial, and she's either going to walk out free, or she's going to spend the rest of her life in jail, either for a crime she did commit or did not commit. It's just absolute drama.
Yeah, and stakes could not be higher for that woman. The idea of, oh, I'm framed. Most people roll their eyes, especially if you go back 10, 20, 30 years. If you were saying, oh, the cops framed me, that might be a little different climate that we're living in now, though. What's your take on jurors' openness to, I was framed by a bunch of police officers?
I'm glad you asked that question, because here's my response. 20 years ago, my response would have been different than it is now. They threw out a word about 20 minutes ago that most people probably didn't catch. They want to look at the Apple Health data from his watch. 20 years ago, we didn't have that, right? And so we have a lot more evidence available to us now as human beings because of the climate we live in, social media, technology, health watches, than we had 20 years ago. So when they threw out the word frame, jurors are actually going to have a plethora, a buffet of evidence to look at to decide whether or not she was framed. People have been framed before, and they've made that defense before. And some of them were telling the truth, but they weren't believed. So I think this is going to be, you know, the evidence is going to be more now than before. So we will see.
Yeah, we will. Michael Jaafar, as always, thank you for your valuable time. We'll get a break in here.